Depression Baby. Stories about growing up in Appalachia and other things too. With my dad, Ray B. Rogers.
On August 16th, 1929, I came into this world kicking and screaming. I reckon that made me a depression baby.
Depression Baby is a World Songs media production. Brought to you by Depression Baby the Book, available in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover, and soon audiobook at raybrogers.com.
Maggie's Daughter and the Quilt of Many Colors. The winter days in the mountains were short and cold, but the nights were long and colder still. Many families relied on fireplaces to cut the cold, while many bedrooms knew no heat at all, with uninsulated walls to shield against the winter winds. So what was one to do to keep the body warm? Bricks, or a flat iron, could be heated and wrapped in cloth and placed in the beds to take off the chill. And there were feather beds. Duck and goose down made the best feather beds. And then there were quilts. Mountain women made their own quilts for their families. When dresses, shirts, and other clothing were worn and patched to the maximum, they went into the rag box. The rags that weren't faded too badly were saved to make the next quilt. The making of quilts developed into an art form, with patterns such as flower garden, lonely star, wedding ring, friendship, Dutch doll, and string quilts. Some quilts took an informal route, with the pieces of cloth almost randomly sewn together with splashes of color to give an effect that might be analogous to modern art forms. These were called patchwork quilts. In fact, a couple of entrepreneurs in Atlanta gathered quilts from the Alabama community of Gee's Mill and took them on tour in cities all over the USA to be gushed over by the critics. The makers of the quilts have become quasi-celebrities. But this did not happen to Maggie Medford's daughter. She meticulously cut out little octagonal-shaped pieces of cloth by the hundreds and took great pains to match the colors to make wondrously attractive flower garden quilts. Maggie's daughter didn't go to art school to learn this art form. Her efforts were born of necessity. It took piles of quilts to keep the babies warm. And sewing those little pieces of cloth together was only the start of the process. There was the quilting to be done, and a quilting frame was now needed. A bedroom was usually cleared and the quilting frame was attached to the ceiling. When the quilting was not going on, the frame could be raised up to the ceiling by pulleys and secured. And when a quilting bee was imminent, the frame was lowered to accommodate chairs on all sides of the quilt. And then the fun began. Quilting bees were much more than putting together thousands upon thousands of stitches to sew the top and bottom of the quilt together with the cotton batting in between. The bees were actually social events. Maggie's daughter and her greater sisterhood had limited social outlets, so this was a time to catch up on the community news. When Maggie was taken from her husband and children by an untimely death, her daughter had to quit school to be the substitute mother of her younger brothers and sisters. They had to close Maggie's country store, and her daughter fed and clothed the little ones and put away her banjo. She mourned not getting to finish her education. These were hard times, but she had to do what she had to do. But life went on, and Maggie's daughter went on to raise two families, her own and Maggie's. She did exceedingly well with what was provided. She left not one but many legacies. She created 5 flower garden quilts for her children. How many quilting bees and how many little pieces of cloth and how many little stitches. Each quilt was a legacy of love. Maggie named her daughter after 2 uncles, Uncle Will and Uncle Boone, which came out as the unlikely name of Willie Boone. I know that Uncle Will and Uncle Boone would be proud of their namesake and niece, but they could never be as proud of Willie Boone as I am, for I am her son, and I have this quilt of many colors that can only be matched by my memories of Maggie's daughter.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Depression Baby. And if you did, my dad has one important request. If this podcast brought a little smile to your day, would you please consider right now subscribing for free to the podcast and kindly leaving a nice 5-star rating and review on iTunes. You can make the difference in getting Depression Baby in front of a wider audience and help preserve this disappearing legacy. If you need any help with how to subscribe to the podcast, just go to raybrogers.com and look for the podcast tab on the main menu. Thanks to our audio and musical contributors, including our friend Lobo Loco. You can find out more about him and all the rest of the music and audio in the show notes at, you guessed it, raybrogers.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on Depression Baby.